Maya Shimoguchi, production designer for Hawkeye. This is such a fun show and a fun looking show. And I think one of the reasons is because of its setting. So what was your reaction when you found out this was going to be set in New York City at Christmas time?
Well, I think it was a little bit of anxiety because at the time we were shooting in New York in December, in November and December of 2020. So I was really like, we're going to New York. But it actually was really fun to delve into the idea of Christmas, which connotates, that feeling of wanting to go home, and the whole show being set in New York, it really became kind of a love letter to New York City.
Mhm. Yeah, and you guys did some exteriors there, but primarily the show was shot in Atlanta, right?
Yes, so we shot a couple of weeks of exteriors in New York, and then the rest of it was shot either on stages or outside in Atlanta.
Mhm. I have to start with the final episode, the piece de resistance, the 30 Rock fight, because that was set in Atlanta. You guys replicated Rockefeller Center and the ice rink. So uh, just tell me all about it. How did you guys build the set and do the tree and everything? Because it looked like you guys were there.
So the first thing was that we actually did go there at in December in 2020 to just the tree was up, and so that was a really crucial thing to really understand the scale of it, and they did a lot of scanning of the actual place. And then we built a digital model of the whole thing. And by working on that model, we were kind of able to not necessarily build the whole area, So like we built, I think 2/3 of the ice rink. And we built another like half of the plaza. So it was a really important tool to be able to figure out the parts that we could they could put in digitally, and the parts that we really needed to build. And the VFX team was amazing in that it's just really seamless, and I can't see the transition points.
No, you really can't. Because when I was watching, I was like, I know they did not actually shoot in real life. Like, I know this is a set, but it looks like they were there for sure. So the ice, obviously, it was not real ice on your set. So what was that material
Yeah.
you used?
So we thought about doing real life. So there's like like you see in downtowns, in cities, there are companies that build portable exterior ice rinks. So we thought about doing that, but then you've got the thing where you have real ice and you have to keep the environment cold anyways, and we're in Atlanta. So yeah. So we went with it's a product that is made for skating, that it's a plastic product that people make artificial rinks out of, and you can skate on it.
Good for sliding too. And
Good for sliding. It's
yeah.
slick. Yeah.
What about the tree? How much of that did you replicate? Because Jeremy Renner has to fall into it as well, and then Haley Steinfeld has to shoot at it and it falls down. What went into that?
So we had a large tree that we specifically ordered cut down, and we put, I think, about 50,000 lights on it. And then we replicated the ball that goes on the top of the tree, which is a really specific ornament that the city of New York commissioned a while ago. But like the close-up of Jeremy in a tree is a separate set piece. So in the end, it was done with there was a real large tree, but there were also mock-ups for specific parts.
Mhm. Yeah, like he shot those like separately, not actually dangling.
Yeah, there was we cut a chunk of a tree, of a big tree, and then positioned him inside of it, so he wasn't 60 feet up in the air.
Is it true that you guys prematurely threw away the tree and then you needed to dig it out of the trash because you needed like an extra shot?
Well, what happened was that there were invariably there were pickups that were needed. And the tree at that time, though, like the tree was kind of dying. So on the one hand, it was like we're still kind of trying to use it as much as we can, but it's also starting to really go downhill.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And one set piece I also love was Rogers the musical. Just it should be a real Broadway show. I know everyone's said that already, but that set was amazing just for one musical number, Save the City. But you had to condense the New York skyline onto that stage, and you have that really long, massive bridge for all the dancers and everything. So what went into that building a fake Broadway set?
That was a real highlight for all of us. It was really challenging and fun. In Atlanta, there's an old theater, an old beautiful theater called the Fox Theater. So they knew from the beginning that we were going to build the set on the stage there. And the theater is very, very old and historically super well preserved, which has its good points and bad points. So the good point is that it is unbelievably beautiful, but the bad point is that there are certain things that haven't really been upgraded. So for instance, we knew we wanted to have some kind of a bridge similar to the overpass that's near uh,
Grand Central.
Grand Central, and the bases of the bridge could only be in very specific areas on the far ends of the stage. And there was no way to put a support in between there. So we ended up having to really build this 40-foot long bridge that had to then be disassembled into pieces that could fit through a door. So because the load in onto that stage is just very small. So everything, all of the set pieces in the background, everything had to be built into these small modules that we could take apart and put through a door. And then, we had 3 days to put together the whole piece before rehearsals started. So the whole thing, the time frames were very tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was like a puzzle, the bridge.
It was a puzzle, but it was really fun, and it was amazing to see how the choreographer put together the whole number.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. And then the skyline, like they look all hand painted. Were they?
Yes. So we have this amazing scenic who worked on our show, Larry Clark, and who just brings a lifetime of experience. And we had illustrations and drawings and 3D models of the set, but in the end it comes down to people on scaffolds hand painting the backings. And he just had a really great crew, and he was able to direct them in a way that all of those pieces were painted, and we never saw any of the whole thing all together until we were standing in the theater.
How many times did you guys shoot that performance?
There was 1 day of dress rehearsals, and they shot the dress rehearsal, but I don't know that they used that footage. And then there was 1 day of actual shooting.
What happened to all those pieces now? Because I think they should save them when they produce Rogers the Musical on Broadway.
I think they're probably in the Marvel warehouse somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, as long as they're safe somewhere. I also love the KB toy store, the dilapidated toy store sets. So where was that shot, and what was it like bringing in all those old toys, like the unicorn and the spaceship rides and the ball pit and shelves and everything?
So, I, we're really lucky. The set decorator on this, Missy Parker, is just such a phenomenal set decorator, and once we decided that we were going to shoot inside of this old building, so it was just an empty old building, and that we were going to have to bring like everything to make this an old KB Toys. She got really into the whole building of it, and we built the ball pit and all the shelving, and she sourced all of the large toys, the vintagey pieces that were in there. It was a really, really fun set because there was so much action, and we were in this large building, and we really went and used like every square foot in there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of that, when you do have to take into account these fight scenes on sets, like how closely do you work with stunts and the stunt choreographers when you're designing something like I mean, the rink is a different story because it's just like space everywhere, but the toy store is that you have shelves, and then there's like columns that they're spinning around, and there's like a second floor of the office that they go through, and he falls into the pit. So what's that collaboration like with stunts?
We had a really amazing set coordinator who was choreographing the fights, and basically we built a 3D model of this not just the building that we were in, but also all the pieces that we were putting in it, and then we worked with the stunt coordinator to kind of go back and forth. So we kind of gave her the model, and then she would build on her rehearsal stage mock-ups of the space. And then, she'd ask questions and request changes. So we just kind of went back and forth until we arrived at something that worked for everyone.
Were there any like big changes you guys made to it because of the stunts?
I mean, I think it really was a pretty tight back and forth, where they would shoot an animatic and shoot a rehearsal of their sequence, and then ask if we could make some changes. We'd make some changes, shoot them back the revised model, and then we went to the space numerous times with everyone to go through it and talk about like where the camera was going to be, what was in the way. Yeah, it was actually a really fun process.
Going back to what you're saying earlier about how the show is about, Clint just wanting to get home for Christmas. And I love the juxtaposition of, I mean, the style of the show, because you have the bright lights of Christmas and also the underbelly of, these gangs, the Tracksuit Mafia and everything, but also their respective homes, like Clint and Kate's, because his farm is so warm and lovely with his wife and kids just waiting for him. And Kate's apartment, or Eleanor's apartment, it's she's rich and everything and blah, but it's a little bit colder. So can you talk about your approach to designing those two sets, their houses?
Yeah, from the very beginning, there was the idea that Clint's world was grounded in kind of your classic American Gothic feel, so not a commercial Christmas, but a home crafted Christmas that's really built around the people that are there, the family, and that Kate's world, especially her mom's world, it was very cool. The color stories were very cool, and while it was very beautifully put together, it was more detached, and not as kind of an emotionally grounded place.
Yeah, you could definitely see that with just how it's darker lit there, and then there's more shadows, and yeah, there's darker colors as well, like a lot of browns. Which set was the hardest for you to design for any reason?
For any reason, let me see. I mean, I'm just hesitating because there were sets that we designed that were very difficult that ended up not being in the show. So, not those. I think one thing that was actually difficult to get a real grasp on was the LARPing scene, where they're in supposed to, Central Park, and they're doing that play acting fighting sequence. I didn't have any personal experience with LARPing. And we did a lot of research and we talked to a lot of people, but it's something where it could go tragically wrong and just be really awful. And so there was that feeling of like, on the one hand, you can't approach it timidly. You have to really go like all out in this world of LARPing and really embrace it. And it took a while for me to really get there. But once we did, and we really went like full on into this, creating this whole world. And we created like a whole backstory that you never see, that has to do with the two different opposing teams and their goals and their symbols and their color stories. So we had to kind of invent a whole way to get into it. And that.
So now you're a LARPing expert, is what you're saying.
I could design a LARPing scene.
Yeah. Season 2, there you go. And finally, what was your favorite set?
Oh my gosh. Possibly the used car lot and garage, because that was just an empty parking lot. And we needed to do both a used car lot for an end scene with Clint and Maya, and where they have a standoff, and also for the flashback scene of Maya's father being killed inside the auto repair store, shop, whatever you want to call it. So working on that was really exciting, because it had to combine a lot of different objectives with the same kind of feeling of being somewhere totally not Atlanta. And anyway, so that was just really fun.
And it's also one of the simpler, I guess, like less opulent sets as well. But sometimes the simple ones, they're not the most obvious ones that you might think. Or
I guess the thing is that we wanted to make it feel real, but everything that was there was built. So while it wasn't like opulent necessarily, it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
And but it was really, really fun. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Maya, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time, and have a great day.
Okay, thanks a lot.